Okay, live streaming, excellent.
There it is. You took a bath. Yeah. Good job.
Daddy,
Yeah.
I need to turn on PlayStation Max for me.
Okay, so we're streaming and recording, so I will call to order this regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees for the month of September, believe it or not, 2020. Wasn't sure we would make it this far, but here we are. Are there any changes to the agenda? Additions or deletions? I think we've got a couple, right?
Royden, I have another budget modification for Keith, specifically for the cameras for the police department.
Okay. Anything else? I think Keith or Ben had emailed me something the other day that slips my mind.
Don't
Ben-
think it was me.
Ben Carver, do we need to revisit the EMS fire budget tonight?
I was going to discuss it a little bit in my report. It's really just to highlight a couple changes that I had mentioned in the last meeting. Or not, I'm sorry, a couple points and the one change that I had mentioned in the last meeting. But no, not in any substantive way.
So we'll do that under your report and remove it from new business.
Yeah.
And then I have one addition, which is we have to authorize a couple of documents to be signed for our ongoing efforts on our streetlight conversion. We'll do that under my report.
And I was also hoping to have you appoint Mark, which I suppose could go under your report as well.
Staff appointment. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Do we have to formally add bridge discussion?
Oh, yes, of course. Old business will add footbridge discussion.
Thank you.
Don't thank me now. Then I'll move on to item number 3, which is approval of minutes from our August 10th, 2020 board meeting. If someone would like to move that.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussions, comments, or edits on the meeting minutes from August 10? If not, then all in favor of adopting the minutes as presented from August 10, 2020, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item number 4 is our first public comment period. I don't see anyone from the public present or joined at the moment. Unless Chief
Right.
Taylor has something non-fire related. Yeah.
I got a message from Ann Corman. She is going to be late, the county budget something.
Okay. Come back to her when she's able to join. So with no public comment or no one from the public present to comment and no other representatives present.
Actually, sorry to jump in. I have an email from Mark that I can share that has his report. If that's all right.
Town. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, the town report. So the middle school program that I hope everyone has heard about for 7th and 8th graders, sort of a supplemental program, started. Currently 4 students enrolled at the fairgrounds. It's a collaboration between Rural Youth Program, which is Ethan Crampton, who's the program manager that works with the Youth Commission, and Town Rec with Will Glennon, who's the rec director. Also includes Paul Pennick, not really functioning as a school employee, but and obviously a number of other people who have stepped up to help, including, what is it, Ontario Trumansburg Telephone Company? I always forget the actual acronym. I just call them the T-Bird Phone Company. But in any case, they donated the Wi-Fi hookup, which has been a sort of essential piece. So thanks for that. Also, the Habitat Nature Preserve, they had their parking sign was destroyed and is being replaced. He also mentioned that Matt had suggested widening the trails at the Salo property. It doesn't sound like the Conservation Committee is comfortable with that, but they're going to try and work out some way to make some sort of doable solution. And the Jacksonville Park, which I'm assuming he's putting in here on Nancy's behalf, has connected the water line for their new restroom. There's no restroom in place yet, but the water line, I guess, is in place. And that's it.
Okay, great. Yeah, this collaboration, I don't know if everyone is familiar with it. It sounds like a really good effort they're putting together for 7th and 8th graders on their days when they are remote, which actually now is every day until early October because of delayed construction at the middle school. But glad to see that that's proceeding well. Let's see, we'll move along unless Ann or Nancy show up for some reason. We'll move along to board member reports, starting with fire, CPZR, and farmers market.
Sure. So to start with the fire, I actually had a late add. My apologies to the Dropbox. There's 2 bids in there for sprinklers. I believe, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a 5-year inspection and then request for some improvements and replacements, upkeep. The total for both is, or actually both quotes are for exactly the same amount for $3,150. So I think Matt had a preference for Davis Ulmer, if I have that right. Yeah, so it's just, we need for that amount, just need board approval to go ahead and take that out of station maintenance. So I'd like to move that we approve up to, well, I approve the quotes for sprinkler work, or this quote for sprinkler work for Davis Ulmer to inspect and repair the sprinklers in the fire station coming from the fire maintenance. I think I said all the right pieces.
Well, second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions for either Ben or Chief Taylor? If not, then all.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Are we splitting that with EMS, Matt? Or is it all fire station maintenance?
Well, it doesn't matter to me. I don't know if they carry that kind of station maintenance in the EMS budget. I don't know their budget lines that well.
It's not very, they don't have as much as you do.
I'm guessing they don't. So I think it's always been in our line to maintain that part. So
Okay.
it should be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, then all in favor of approving the quote as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Anything more, Ben?
I didn't have much more on fire unless Matt, you wanted to say anything else while you're here.
I can give you an update. Jason and Dan Shear are going to get the pickup truck tomorrow finally. There was some delay in getting it delivered. Honestly, we ordered that truck last late September, so it's almost been a year since we've ordered that truck at this point. It did get delivered up in Albany to the dealer around the first week of August, and then had to get its work done up there, and that has taken a little bit of time. So tomorrow it'll be in the village. We'll get plates put on it. The insurance is already on it. and then it gets stuff loaded into it, and it goes to Gorman and Buffalo, where it'll get the final upfit, the lights, the whole 9 yards. And I believe they're lettering it up there as well. So it should be in service here probably by mid-October, by the time we're done, late October, just in time for the snow to fly. So other than that, I don't have a whole lot of other things. You know, we've been doing a lot of training in the gorge, if you haven't heard, putting that rope and the rope rescue tools to work quite extensively, really starting to take our technical rescue game to a higher level. That's because really that's really what's needed in this area. That the gorge is a place that's heavily traveled, and there's nobody except for Ithaca that really can help us out in those types of situations. So make sure when you see Basher or Dan Shear, they're kind of spearheading that effort, and I'm supporting it from the backside. Other than that, all the trucks are back. They're all inspected. 1831's got all the tires on it. We went and got it probably 3 weeks ago now. Went back for an inspection. All's well with that. All the other trucks, I know 1802, you've got a couple of little problems with that we're going to have to work through. Nothing that's really big, but to get 3 more years out of it, we're going to have to put a little bit of money into it over the next 6-8 months. So there's something to keep you up on. That's all I've got.
Cool. Thanks, Matt. For the CPZR side, things continue to progress forward. Our next meeting is this coming Thursday at 6. We've made quite good work of the last chapter, chapter 4. We're going to review that on Thursday. That is the chapter that contains kind of the real bullet point details of what are the actual actions being proposed. How do those line up with all the kind of goals in different areas of the comprehensive plan, and then trying to identify out of those a kind of a top hits list that really should be the core focus of, should it be approved this board over the next, shorter while, couple of years. That seems to be going well. I'm not sure we'll wrap that all up this month, maybe next, but we'll see kind of how that lines up. But we're getting real close to a finished draft that we can put out for the village and start getting some feedback on, and figuring out how do we want to roll that out beyond just kind of dropping it on the page and letting people read. Some sort of more digestible presentation, recorded video, webinar. We'll kind of figure out the details there. And then finally on the farmers market side, really not much to say. Continues to be open. Farmers market will be open through the end of October, or middle to end of October. And yeah, haven't heard anything one way or the other going on there. So it seems like things are keeping on. That's it for me.
Excellent. Any questions or comments for Ben? Next up, EMS Youth Street Tree Advisory Committee.
So starting with youth, the big thing to report is that supplemental program that's going on. Hopefully you all have heard about it, but it's really been an inspiring thing to be a part of, even in kind of a tangential way. It's really one of those moments that feels like, community coming together to do something that's very important and impactful for a lot of families. It is, to me, the kind of thing that makes Trumansburg sort of a great place to be. So if you have the chance to contribute in some way or to lend a hand, I hope that you do. The other thing on youth is that the Youth Commission did go over our budget recommendations for the town, which we do every year. Essentially, the Youth Commission recommends how the town runs its budget. All of the Youth Commission budget goes through the town, obviously, and then the village makes a contribution. So at this point, unfortunately, due to drops in funding that we'll receive from the state and the county, we had to draw back that budget, which was a little bit of a dainty process, but we did eventually get to a place that we were all, okay with. And as far as the village goes, where we stand now is that our assumption at this point is that the village contribution will remain the same for next year, as will the towns. So we're not budgeting for an increase on that line because obviously the assumption is that no one will be able to afford that. On tree committee, we're working on a number of small projects, but obviously the biggest project is how we deal with dangerous trees next year. If we do that same program that we did this year and how we do that, I brought back the feedback of this board and we're sort of trying to work with that and juggle, find a way that works. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we got in the mail a plaque, a 6x8 flag, and I believe there's 2 Tree City signs that are coming, or maybe are already here in the office, and I don't know yet. But I just wanted to throw it out there, see if anyone had any ideas. It's all very nice. Obviously, the flag is very big. It says Arbor or Tree City. I don't know. I don't know what to do with them. I wish we had something to do with them, but I honestly, unless we want to make an Arbor month or something, and I don't know. Just so any suggestions would be great if you have anything you'd like to do with that. Otherwise, if someone wants to wear a flag or something, I have no idea. Anyway, so
Roden's front porch.
what's that?
You go on Roden's front porch.
Yeah, there we go.
I might have space for it.
He doesn't have any trees in front of his house to block it.
Could it go in that area like in front of Rondon's where we do put up the tree decorations and stuff?
On that
It could.
flagpole, is that ours?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. No, it's not ours. Tammy's saying no. You gotta unmute, Tam.
No, it's
That's-
not ours. It
We just annexed it.
What?
Who?
Wait, really? Who?
It was the trust company.
Ooh.
The trust company put that in.
All right. Well, so it won't go there.
Farmers market?
Sure.
Is there one there? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think there is.
That might be-
Village Hall needs one in the front yard.
Yeah. Or Village Hall closet could keep it until we have a specific use for it, was kind of my thinking
Yeah.
at this point.
Let me think a little bit about where we can put that, where it
Yeah.
makes sense.
Clerk's desk.
I mean, we do have a flag policy now, and Arbor Day is an accepted, like a national holiday. So we could consider something at least around that.
Right.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we can circle back to that if anyone comes up with an inspired idea.
The actual Arbor Day, not a random fall Arbor Day like we did last year.
Our Arbor Day celebration in November.
Yeah.
So for EMS, obviously we just did the budget meeting with the towns. For the public's benefit, I'll just say that every year we meet with the towns, we go over what we project our budget will be for the following budget year. And based on that number, we divide using essentially the call volume, the rolling average of 3-year call volume for each municipality that we serve. We divide up the total of that budget and then assign contract costs to the municipalities based on that total. So we just went through that process. It all went very smoothly. Except my part. So first of all, just apologies to everyone for being late on that. That was my misunderstanding and confusion. But one thing that I've been hoping to emphasize before that, which I obviously sent out an email about, but what I'll do now just for the public's benefit, is that our portion of that budget increased this year substantially. So when we come to our next budget cycle, what we'll see is a decrease in revenue based on the contracts from those towns that we contract with. So I just want to give a heads up that will happen. Obviously, that's contingent on our own budget process, but at this point, that's sort of the direction that we're heading in.
I know in the past, like in the town, for instance, they've kind of dug in and seen, is there like a top place that should be addressed potentially due to call volume? Have we looked at any opportunities there in the village, or is it kind of just a general over the whole rise?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Yeah,
what
so
you
like
said.
in the towns, they spend a lot of time focusing on cars, right? Because cars is
Oh,
like
right.
their outlier. Is there like a cars here, or is it just kind of a general rise in volume?
There's sort of a rotating cast of characters that I think make up a similar portion. So we'll have, a house or two that will go through periods of really high call volume, and it tends to rotate. We don't have anything on the like order of cars where there's specific administrative changes that could be made that might lower volume or anything obvious like that. Which to me is actually a good thing. I feel really uncomfortable with trying to convince people to not call the ambulance. So I'm happy that we are spared that
Right.
particular task, because that's a really fine edge to walk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would only think of it as are there other services that are better suited to those needs potentially? But that also
Right.
gets very kind of personal very quickly unless you're talking about some sort of institution.
Yeah, and it is tricky because we only go when dispatch tells us to go, so we can't.
Right.
If we were going to make a change of an administrative variety, not respond to a specific type of call or something along those lines, we would have to go through them, which I don't think is really, it's not really practical.
Right. That's fine.
So I apologize for not attending, but what happened to the direction of mileage and distance being part of the formula for billing?
Then I'll let you jump in for that.
So on the fire side, we've done it we're starting with the next budget. So not this one that we just walked through. We'll be splitting the fire side by about 85% will be based on a appraisal value of the properties. And then 15% will be based on the rolling volume of calls for 3 years. I know we had some conversation, maybe Rorden can say more about maybe where we might take that mental model and apply it to EMS. It's not going to fit one for one, but there's some ideas there.
Yeah, Deb, I'm still working on a formula that Ben Carver and I started a couple years ago, trying to kick around different ways of splitting that budget apart. I like very much the work that Ben Darfler did on the fire piece, but I don't know that there's an easy correlation to property assessment when you move over to ambulance, unless you just use population numbers, which are kind of tricky because we only get a census done every 10 years, and then those numbers are way off by the time you're 6, 7, 8 years in. So I'm not quite sure how we'll make that work, but I'm still thinking through it and plan to at some point try to nail down something that works.
I don't understand the relationship of assessment to fire either, at all, particularly since our assessments in different counties are different. Our assessment rates and the percentages are going to be different in each county. Is that all taken into account in that 85%?
So everyone but Hector is done through Tompkins County assessment. And I'll admit there could be some nuances that I missed with the Hector side, but we all feel pretty comfortable that we're pretty much talking apples to apples there. The mental model there is that, you're protecting property via fire protection. That's kind of where the mental leap there goes.
But 85, so they may all be done by Tompkins County. Are they all at 100% rate? I mean,
they are right now. Yeah. If that ever changed, we'd have to obviously figure out something around that.
Schuyler County went to 100% fair market value a few years ago, but they are still doing their own assessing. Seneca, at least Town of Covert, I don't know if all of Seneca County has, but Town of Covert has subbed out their assessments to Tompkins County now. So at least that piece should be fairly equitable.
So I'll just jump back in. The last thing I wanted to share, actually there's two things. Chris is still pursuing a new program to help track the call statistics. It appears to be a fairly complex bureaucratic kind of a process. So we'll see how that goes. So unfortunately, I don't have all of the information that you all requested several months ago, but hopefully I will. For the moment, I'll just say that the total calls for the month were 81, year to date is 580. And then village, oh, I didn't put village here. I want to say village was 26. Sorry, one second. Village calls were 19 in August, 10 of those being actual transports. And that's it.
One thing on those numbers, if we're already in the process of kind of rethinking how we track those or input them,
Yeah.
to Deb's point, like I know on the fire side, I was very interested in distance and or just total time for a call as kind of another possible input to a metric. It's still very call related, which it has pros and cons, but like it does get closer to the kind of, to Roden's kind of anecdote of like the slip and fall at SureSave versus driving out to the hinterlands of, you know, Hector and then transporting someone further out, even from there to a regional hospital, starts to capture some of those pieces.
Right. Yeah. And an average call distance would be certainly useful. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I'll ask Chris to see. I believe he can already pull that using the current program. So we can, you know, we can pull that information in big chunks for, you know, the last year or whatever. We'd like.
Yeah, certainly something just to play around with and see how those things fall together.
Yeah, I think in our original calculations we used distance, didn't we? Or was it call time, Gordon? Do you remember?
We were using distance. I had a piece of the formula that was furthest distance in the coverage area.
Yeah.
So try to capture how large a particular area is. I also know that Chris, the current program doesn't have an easy way to pull it, but he's been tracking by hand for this calendar year, ALS and BLS calls by contract district. Not quite sure if that'll be useful or not, but I'm curious, and it's running at least through the end of August. It's running at a higher number of ALS calls than BLS, so that was interesting. I thought it would have been the other way around.
Yeah, I think industry standard is like 25% BLS, or I'm sorry, 75% BLS. That's that's very strange.
Yeah.
And that's determined after the call happens, right? Like you kind of categorize it after you see what it required.
Right.
Sometimes dispatch knows based on the type of call that they're sending out. Other times it's determined after the fact.
But anyway, that's it for my report.
Any other questions or comments for Ben? Okay. Next up is what could possibly be Deb's last DPW water and sewer report.
Okay, yay. I actually had two items I wanted to talk about. The first was in 2015, when people had, so we were having an issue when people's pipes broke and they weren't home or they weren't resident, and they would get a $2,000 bill because they weren't there for a month or two. And we agreed at that time that the maximum for a billing period that we would give to our residents was $1,000. Based on the fact that we've now changed our billing parameters to every 2 months as opposed to 3 months, I'd like to revisit that $1,000 and put it to $666, which is 2/3 of the 2/3 of the 1,000. So I'm not really changing it, but it gives us a dollar value when there is an unexplainable or an indisputable break that was not directly related to a resident not responding to an issue. So we don't have a law. We just made it a statement in 2015. I don't know. I will not be here, so I really don't know what else is.
Given that rates have increased since then, do we want to make that limit slightly higher, 700, 750? Or do you think that that's still a decent, I mean, that would be a big number, but it's not inconceivable, I don't suppose.
I just picked it because it was 2/3. I'm not, it could be 700. It's just $700 is $350 a month for water and sewer. I think that's high, but
Oh, it would certainly be high, just
I mean, it shouldn't be often.
does the running, do we, I'm just wondering how lenient the forgiveness policy should be. You know, do we include running toilets that people stubbornly refuse to fix for a month or two? Speaking from experience, or
Yes.
I certainly sympathize with the water main break while you're in Florida for 3 months that you never catch. That we can certainly.
Mine only breaks when I have somebody's house sitting. It's happened twice. So,
I mean, as I understand it, the premise is something where they were doing due diligence. They weren't negligent.
exactly. That was the point. We don't want people suffering to try and keep their water and sewer on.
Just as a note, that policy or that forgiveness policy that we did in 15 was independent of the sewer portion of the bill. So it was just the water.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah,
you
'cause the
happen to
sewers.
No, that's right, because it was only the running water. That was the only thing that would increase it.
Correct.
Tammy, do you or anyone else, do you have a sense of how often we've used this policy?
I can think of twice that we used it, and I think that both instances were probably the reason that the policy it was enacted. One of them was a broken water pipe that they didn't know was there, and I can't remember what the other one was, but I think it may have been someone gone away for a long period of time that had another busted pipe in the basement.
I can think of the 3 times.
Yeah, so we don't use it a lot, but it's nice to have it if we do.
And the problem was is in 2015, a water main break had broken into business and ruined their inventory. And we didn't have any kind of policy or forgiveness or anything. And it was like a $3,000 bill on top of their inventory. It was, which is why we came back and said, we need to do something here. And I think the same month, Royden decided not to fix his toilet.
No, that was a longer ago.
That was before that.
But I didn't make it past the forgiveness cutoff. So.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I can only think, Ben, of a couple of times. One was that business. One was definitely a snowbird situation of some kind. And they were very large, almost looked like they had to be water meter read
Issues.
issues, but they weren't. So.
And believe me, you want to have this limit already expressed, because when you start having the conversation afterwards, it's much better to say, we have this, we've addressed it, here's your limit.
Yeah, I like it. I was just trying to think of, if we were hitting it frequently, maybe it should go up higher. If we're hitting it infrequently, I could even see us going a little lower if we felt like it. I was just trying to see if I had a sense of like what that number should look like. I have a hard time making it any lower because I actually don't know the highest. I haven't done the research recently to know what the highest bills of residential are out there. So we might be running into something if we lowered it.
Right, and at this point, I don't have enough history as far as bi-monthly billing to throw out a number that I feel confident about. I mean, I can do the divide by 3 and multiply by 2 as well. But I don't know that we're gonna get anything more concrete than a number.
Yeah, did we do a little research when we came up with 1,000? I'm just
Yes.
kind of, yeah, okay. Got it.
That's, it's certainly, it's your guys' call on what you want the number to be. But I do think it should be less than $1,000 in a single month. Or in a single billing period, excuse me.
Why don't we keep it relatively the same then, unless in the next 6 to 12 months, we do research and find out that it should be adjusted. I'd say 675, just so we're not, you know, $666.67 if we want to be rounded to the penny. No, I think 675 is probably fair. But it probably would be worth reviewing every couple of years what our average billing numbers are looking like as the rates have crept up since the water project.
If I'm paying $675 every 2 months for water, I really do have to find someplace else to live.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about what multiple of an average, you know, if we go back and look and say that 1,000 is a good number, because the average quarterly bill was 200.
Right.
You know, now we've got a 5 multiple. We should probably keep an eye on that to keep it relatively close.
Okay. The second thing that I have is the sewer plant, sewer law that we had discussed. Now I've read through it. I've highlighted what I know needs discussion. It's not going to happen in this meeting. I would suggest that everyone take their own notes and compile them, and somebody's going to have to meet with MRB.
Yeah, my suggestion would be Ben Carver has sent in some comprehensive notes. Deb, if you want to send me your marked up copy.
It's in in the Dropbox Word highlighted. My highlighted version. It has DW at the end of the title name.
In tonight's meeting?
Somewhere in the Dropbox. I don't know where it is.
Okay, I'll find it. And then Ben Darfler and Keith, if you want to weigh in with comments on anything you see that you either have questions or you even want to just circle a whole section and say, why is this in here? And then I will go back to MRB and have another meeting with them. And they will, at least the sections that are taken from DEC or EPA regs, they'll say, well, this is cut and paste from there. Anything else that's more discretionary, we can discuss.
The most significant issues that I see with this plan is the administration of it. I mean, it calls for the operator, which obviously we have subcontracted, but the superintendent's role is significant, and that I don't see, first of all, we don't have what I would call a sewer superintendent, and I don't even see the contractor fulfilling a number of those. In addition, there's a significant amount of review work and calculations around the billing pieces, like a car wash gets billed 1.5 units times the number of bays. I mean, it was like, okay, I am sure we're not doing this, you know? And so it will also mean a change in billing structure for restaurants and other things within the town, unless it gets addressed within the village.
Right.
So I'm going to leave that on the table. And then lastly, the leaf truck. I know that there's a lot of stuff. I think you have this in yours, right, Vicky? I'm pretty sure she has it in hers. The only question I had after I reviewed that is I didn't see any competitive bids for that. Did we get more than one bid for it?
I don't believe so.
I don't know if
It's
there's,
kind of a sole source kind of thing because it's a very specialized.
yeah, right. That's what I was afraid of. So I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if everybody was aware of that because I was surprised to actually see it in the Dropbox.
But we've actually had it for quite a few months. And there was some issues. They sent us a whole bill as opposed to the lease. So I finally got a hold, the guy actually called me after Dusty couldn't get a hold of him. And we worked out the details of the lease as opposed to paying the $80,000 in one shot.
Okay, so I do think that we need to go forward with it. If not, I think we should be canceling leaf pickup like today. So either it's gone on too long and we've run into a deadline.
But we already have the piece of equipment.
We already have the equipment too.
Yeah, we've had it for 4 or 5 months.
That's
Yeah.
not right.
I think I do recall when Dusty brought this to me earlier this spring. I believe there was a second quote, but it was purchase only.
Okay.
And the purchase price for this one was slightly higher. There was also a repair quote for what is already existing, but that was not really, we didn't really entertain that. Because the old piece of equipment is so old. But if I recall correctly, the other option was purchase only and was slightly less money, but we didn't have the ability to spread it out.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure someone was aware of it.
Yep.
And that's all you have for me?
Any questions for Deb?
Just say I looked briefly in the Dropbox and couldn't find your notes. So if you just could double check that, Deb, at some point, make sure that the sewer law is in there.
I'll tell you.
Thanks.
I got a message from Deb when it went in, so I think I can find it. I'll look.
All right, thanks.
Okay. So, well, I want to thank you for an interesting 10 years. And I'm going to tell you my one pet peeve. After
Just
10
one?
years. Really, only one. My number one pet peeve is that I can't stand when things are misspelled. Mecklenburg is Mecklenburg. Personnel is Personnel. I was like, please. So other than that, it's been fun, guys. Thanks for the memories.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Deb.
Yes, thank you, Deb, for all of the. It's been a heck of a 10 years. It's been a heck of a run.
Yeah.
But as I've said to other people before, particularly on the water and the sewer, which we're going to talk a little bit more about later, the water system infrastructure piece, as other municipalities around the Cuba Lake watershed try to figure out what the heck they're going to do. It's really, really nice sitting in a municipality where our water system is state of the art and more than we need, because there are just so many municipalities out there that what they have doesn't work, and their options are slim. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Let's see, next up, police and TACC.
So first, just a monthly police report, 203 calls for service during the month of August. We assisted the state police and Tompkins County Sheriff Department for service in town of Ulysses for one missing person located at New York State Park, Tucanic State Park, and assisted the Sheriff Department with a weapon retrieval. And I believe the missing person case got a big assist from Officer Mackenzie Covert, who hiked through lots of woods and wilderness and got eaten up by mosquitoes to find this person and get them back. So I was actually asking her some questions about some things, and she was responding to me while she was in the woods. So I was kind of giving a live update of her movement through the forest, in which she described prehistoric sized mosquitoes. So thank you to Officer Mackenzie for that effort. Not much other detail necessary on the report. So that's the numbers. The police chief Nelson was out at the school today helping direct traffic for the first day of school, as we have turned Wig Street essentially into a one-way from south down through Truman. So he was out helping people navigate that. And it was backed up quite a bit, but first day of school with new drop-off procedures, it's kind of to be expected. Seemed to clear up pretty quickly once it got going, but if anyone's listening to this, I would expect kind of extended delays in this area of the village in the mornings as the process continues to get smoothed out with the new drop off. And what's happening is not only can parents not get out of their cars, the drop off policy is essentially parents cannot get out of the cars, nobody can park, you just have to drive up and drop. And with less people riding the bus, that is adding to a whole lot more drop off. So just a combination of a lot of things there. I guess with regards to police, the next item would be to discuss the body cam purchase that came up last meeting. In the Dropbox, Vicky has composed a budget modification request. Essentially what we discovered was there, because we currently only have one full-time officer, there was a savings in the benefits line, as I'm struggling now to find that. There it is. So we have we have about an extra $20,000 that wasn't used for benefits, and we're proposing to authorize a transfer of up to $8,000 from the police medical insurance to the police equipment line for the first year payment of body cams. And I'm guessing, is this a permissive referendum that we have to pass, Roden?
Nope, it's just a straight resolution that we need moved and seconded.
Okay, so I would move that we authorize this transfer in the amount of $8,000 from the police medical insurance to the police equipment budget line to pay for these first year of body cameras.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion on this piece?
Will any police officer that is on duty have a camera on and be required to wear it?
As far as I know, yes. Yeah, I think, I believe there's basically a sign in, sign out process that then connects the camera to that officer's profile, is how I understand it. So once you sign into your shift, that camera is then marked with you as a particular officer.
We have, Deb, we have a body camera policy within the police department that I'm sure is in need of updating. So that'll be something that Chief will have to tackle in short order. Mostly it would cover when the camera must be on. So we'll, either Keith or I will talk to Chief about making sure that the policy is to his liking. But the idea is that yes, anytime an officer is on duty, they're wearing the camera. It may not be on at all times because we don't need to see them eating their lunch, but certainly anytime they're interacting with anyone from the public, it should be on. I will just add, I had a conversation with just today, actually, a conversation with a mayor from another Tompkins County municipality who is, they are looking into body cam purchases for their department. And their board had questions about, because it is a significant cost, as we know, their board had questions about, is it really needed? Is it really useful? Do we really need to spend the money on it? Their police department is strongly advocating for it, but the members of the board weren't sure it was worth the expenditure. And so I just shared from my perspective, not necessarily speaking on behalf of everyone, but certainly from my perspective, that I think it's,
Well worth it.
if not a necessity, it's very close to one. And not only for the protection of members of the public, but very much so for the protection of our officers that we ask to work for us. And the expense, the seemingly high expense of the cameras pales in comparison to the expense of any legal battle down the road if anything negative were to occur without the use of the cameras. So that would be something that we're a little bit ahead of the curve as far as that goes, and I'm happy to see it.
And again, one of the advantages of the system that we're going with is that Chief spoke about was that really this particular camera and the software package with it, requires or takes more power away. It basically makes it more secure in terms of the inability to tinker with any footage that you might want to try to doctor or anything like that. It puts the power. I think there's more of a direct upload to the district attorney's office or into the cloud where the district attorney accesses the footage. So it basically takes away the risk of tampering.
It also does address, that was the other thing I mentioned to the individual I spoke with today. It also does address some of these new discovery laws with their very short timeframes with respect to turning over evidence. So that alleviates the personnel hours pressure that we would have with any other type of device where there was a significant amount of data that might need to be transferred to the DA or other attorneys as might be needed.
Now, do we need another resolution to actually authorize the sale itself or the purchase itself?
I would believe that was in their budgets then.
I believe, didn't we approve that, Keith? Tammy or Vic, you might recall when we had the two quotes, was it two meetings ago?
Yeah, I definitely brought the quotes forward. I don't know if there was an official, I don't recall if there's an official passage of anything in reference to those quotes. But I thought we
Tammy,
did.
Vicky, or Morgan, if you would double check and see whether we authorize the acceptance of the quote from Axon. I think it would have been 2 meetings ago.
I know that Chief has gotten a better price than the quotes that you saw a couple months ago. Because he's been working on it continually for the last few weeks. So I can get that from him and send it to you too, but I can look up the other thing tomorrow.
Please.
Sure.
So we have a motion and a second on the table for the budget mod. Is there any other questions or comments on this piece? Hearing none, then all in favor of accepting the budget modification proposal as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Anything else, Keith, on police or TACC?
No, nothing really new to report on the chamber at this time. So I'm good.
Okay. Treasurer.
You're on mute, Vicky.
You're muted.
Okay. Anyway, the first thing under my report is the budget modifications for 1920. They were in the Dropbox for you to review. I just need you to approve them so I can do them before the auditors come the first week in November.
Okay, so these are budget modifications to close out the 2019 and 2020 fiscal year, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Would someone like to move these modifications?
Yeah, I move that we accept these budget modifications as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or discussion? Okay, hearing none, then all in favor of accepting these budget modification requests as presented, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay,
The second thing is for the approval for the board for Warden to sign the leaf truck lease.
So moved. I move that we have Gordon sign the leaf truck lease.
I'll second.
motion and a second. Any questions on the lease itself?
I'm getting the impression that we have much choice, but is like 10% or so, or whatever that is, sort of a standard rate.
It's I thought it was 3.5%. See,
He's talking about the payment, not the percentage.
oh, it's a 5-year lease, Ben.
Yeah.
The total of the bill was like $80,500. I don't have it with me right now.
83 something, I saw it.
Yeah,
Well,
83. But then it goes up to 92 if we pay. I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm just curious.
It's effectively about a 2% lease rate.
All right. Clearly, I did something wrong. All right. Very good.
And the other thing that goes along with that is a permissive referendum to take those funds from the DPW equipment reserve.
Okay, well, we've got one thing at a time. So we've got
I'm sorry.
a motion and a second to authorize me to sign the leaf truck lease. Any other comments on that? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, then the next item would be a resolution to authorize just looking at this real quick. So I would entertain a motion to accept a resolution to issue a permissive referendum to spend up to $18,504.41 for the first of 5 annual lease payments for the leaf truck coming out of DPW equipment reserve.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay,
And the last thing for approval is for the board to approve for Roden to sign the municipal solution agreement.
I move that we authorize Gordon to sign the municipal services agreement. This is
a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any
What is
questions
this
on
for again?
So Municipal Solutions acts as the bond advisor, which is separate, not the same as bond counsel, for all of our borrowing needs. And it's done by contract where they stipulate how much they'll charge per event or per type of event.
And is this for the shortening up of those bonds a couple months ago, or something different?
No, this is ongoing. Basically, we have them on retainer.
Got
Right.
it.
So anytime we have a borrowing need, they are who we go to.
there's a whole lot of legal requirements around all of these bonds that
Right.
have to report quarterly on, et cetera, or annually. And that's what this particular document is addressing, is that on retainer stuff, not a particular bond, but stuff that we have to report to agencies on.
Got it.
And it's a
Thank you.
two-year agreement. Any other questions or comments on this agreement with Municipal Solutions? If not, then all in favor of authorizing me to sign this agreement, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Anything else, Vicky?
The only thing is August should be balanced hopefully by the end of this week. So we'll be pretty much up to date of what we've spent and what we've have had come in for revenue.
Okay,
That's about it. Everything else is pretty much caught up. The auditors are coming the first week in November again.
Okay. Good. Any questions for Vicky? Clerk, Tammy.
So I took a look at where we are with unpaid taxes today, and to date, we have about 56,000 outstanding. I didn't get a chance to compare it to last year's, but it seems to me that we're right about par for the course. Of course, we collect until October 15th, and then I send them down to the county for collection. So that's where we are with taxes. Next week would have generally been the week that my office mates and I generally go away to fall training. Because of COVID, we're not doing that. So we're doing virtual training. So we will be in the office the regular, 8 to 5 hours. But just keep in mind that we're all in class during the day. So if something you feel like you're not getting answered quickly or not getting to one of us quick enough, feel free to throw us a text or whatever and tell us to look at our phones so that we know you're trying to get a hold of us while we're in class. I think it's probably going to take a little bit of getting used to, especially when there's hundreds and hundreds of us. And the last thing, I guess, two things. So Morgan and I did some cleaning upstairs today. We are going to have a ton of shredding to do. We pulled everything that has to be destroyed. We haven't done it in a few years. I think it's been like 4 or 5 actually. So if you all have stuff that you're ready to get rid of, and Deb, I gotta believe that you are going to be the keeper of all things. We are going to be scheduling a shredding truck. Soon. So I'm going to say 4 to 6 weeks, and maybe try to get it done before the snow flies. And then last but not least, as you all know, school started today for most of our kids. My daughter is going to school. She entered high school today. She's in school Mondays and Wednesdays. Sorry. That's what you get when you got a hound in the house. Sorry. So I will be in the office Mondays and Wednesdays, and I'm going to be working remotely on Tuesdays and Thursdays to try to keep her on task. And because she's of the age where she's too old for a babysitter, but yet too young to leave at home for long extended periods of time. So again, you all have my cell phone number. I think I've got my technology issues nailed down finally. So if you need anything and I'm not in the office, please know that just because I'm not there, I am still working. So if anybody needs anything, please don't hesitate to ask. And I think that's it, unless anybody's got specific questions.
Anybody have any questions for Tammy?
That was easy.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jim.
A couple items under my report. First is they'll do the 2 additions first. In the Dropbox, there are 2 documents. Had a productive meeting with representatives from NYPA last month, shortly after our board meeting last month, where they went over what they, if you'll recall, when Casey Mastro was here and he discussed the 90% design meeting. That was the meeting that I had with the reps from NYPA, basically going over which streetlights would be replaced, what the scope of work looked like. It's a 400-page document, so we did not go through every page, but it's a very comprehensive engineering style document that they put together about what the actual streetlight conversion looks like. There was also financials included, which are substantially similar to what was presented to us going on 2 years ago, wherein we can borrow from anyone we want, but NYPA is the currently the funding arm that would lend us money at a low interest rate to purchase the streetlights from NYSEG, the ones we don't own, and then also fund the exchange of the infrastructure itself to LED lights, and then tie it into the software that allows us to control our lighting, stay ahead of any potential repairs that might need to be done, and so forth. The financials actually look to improve slightly based on a couple of things. There is a small dollar amount grant that NYPA also has available that we have yet to apply for, but are being encouraged to do so. I think that's $20,000 that'll come our way for that. And then also, as we were going through the 90%, and this is the reason why we do these things, I suppose, we were going through it. The engineering assumption was that NYSEG owned our streetlights along Main Street in the downtown corridor, the what they call the decorative streetlights, where all of our graduation banners were hung from this summer. So I corrected them and said that no, we own that. So that reduces the purchase cost, obviously, from NYSEG. It also opens up the possibility that instead of replacing those, which is what NYPA had assumed we would need to do, that they may be able to retrofit the existing decorative streetlights because they're less than 10 years old. There really isn't a reason they can't. So I'm hoping that all of that adds up to a little bit more cost savings. The 2 documents in the Dropbox are agreements with NYSEG, which were never signed when this first began back in 2018. One is a confidentiality agreement, which basically says that only NYSEG, the village, our respective attorneys, and NYPA will have any access to financials or the details of the agreement. There's 2 versions of it. One is basically between the village and NYSEG directly. The other is between the village, NICEAG, and NIPA, and any other third party we wanted to name, but I don't believe there would be anyone included in that. So to move forward, I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign both of these confidentiality agreements and forward them back along to NICEAG.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this long-running back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, did we have to do this because the original purchase agreement was out of date? I mean, we definitely sent them these forms already once. So I don't know. Did something expire?
So yes, so they did want to suggest that they needed to work up a new purchase quote because the one they sent us last was in December of 2019 and had a 180-day time frame. I responded to that and suggested that based on, I forget the number, Executive Order 202 dot something, that these contracts were probably still valid. The language of the email I got back basically said, we will do you a favor and honor our old quote, but they still insisted that we re-sign these. I think it's probably easier for me to sign them than to go back and insist that they find the documents that I'm sure we did send them already.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on these two items? Okay, hearing none, then I would call for a vote on authorizing me to sign these two. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The next edition is, I had a nice conversation last week with Mark Devakaitis, who is currently on the Ulysses Town Board until the end of the year. He has expressed interest in staying involved. And in particular, he's expressed interest in the Street Tree Advisory Committee and the Environmental Management Council, of which we have not had a representative from the village on that for some time. So it's mine to appoint. So I will take this opportunity to appoint Mark to both the STAC and the EMC, effective immediately. And Ben, if you would let him know that he's welcome on the STAC now, and then I will also send him an email about the Environmental Management Council.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan.
Now back to what is on the agenda. TCOG, you all know TCOG, some of you very well. Tompkins County Council of Governments had several years ago discussed the issue of rural EMS, and they came up with a number of, they accurately highlighted all of the problems, and they came up with a couple of potential solutions, and then nothing was really ever done with it. The TCOG, in an effort, this is now pre-COVID, so we're going back to January, February, and trying to figure out what their mission would be for 2020, decided to revisit some of these issues. And one of them, I found myself on a committee to evaluate first response throughout Tompkins County. In the Dropbox is a resolution which we developed over the last several months, which is EMS focused. It's not that we're ignoring fire or anything else. It's just that EMS tends to be the one that comes to the forefront. And hey, there's nothing quite like a global pandemic to highlight the need for emergency healthcare. The resolution, and I won't take the time to read it all because it will be available. It's already available publicly. Essentially is one that calls on the Tompkins County Legislature, as well as the New York State Assembly and Senate, to investigate a consolidated funding model of some type, whether it's based on CHIPS or the Transportation State Operating Assistance budget model, wherein they would begin to provide funding to municipalities only. So we're not talking about private sector or not-for-profits. Municipalities who operate paid ambulance departments, irrespective of whether it's ALS, BLS, paramedic, EMT. It's kind of a first step in trying to get New York State to do something about rural EMS. So the resolution that you see in the Dropbox was adopted by TCOG at our last meeting. It'll be forwarded on to the county ledge and others. I am planning to, if we approve it, and I'm simply looking for kind of just we could essentially pass the same resolution with amendments where everywhere it says TCOG, we can substitute Village of Trumansburg. And then we would forward this along to our state representatives, both incoming and outgoing, as well as reps from our adjacent municipalities who we contract with, and just see if we can develop a broader conversation about trying to push this boulder uphill a little bit. None of us at TCOG have any illusions that if this ever worked and turned into legislation that made its way to the governor's desk, that the current governor would ever consider signing it. But I think we can at least start that conversation and see where it goes in the next several years. So I would entertain a motion, and we can certainly discuss it if anyone has questions or comments. I would entertain a motion to adopt with edits pending this same resolution on behalf of the village to be forwarded to our county and state representatives.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Just to say that I think this is great. It's the most concrete action I've seen on this front. It's very nicely done, I think. So thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I know I have had the tendency to pick on TCOG over the years, but certainly the consortium came out of it. The support for municipalities who wanted to ban fracking was a significant piece that came out of TCOG. I think this could be another one if it gets legs. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, then all in favor of adopting this resolution with amendments pending, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, and then the last thing under my report for tonight is we've discussed briefly the Governor's Executive Order 203, which requires meetings and community input on police reform, whether the municipality's police department needs to see any significant changes. I have publicized the request to the public for those who may be interested in participating. I have about a dozen names so far of folks who have reached out. I'm not checking it every day, so I don't know if any more were added today. I'm suggesting that we give it another week. Perhaps anyone watching this meeting or watching the recording who meant to raise their hand, who hasn't yet, will. But then unless the numbers are very large, unless we see a spike in requests to participate, if we're in the dozen-ish range, then I'm suggesting, unless the board wants to do otherwise, that we will probably schedule, for now, we will schedule one small group meeting with the volunteer participants, probably held at the fire hall, probably held in person. There's enough room in that meeting room to socially distance or physically distance, and we can all wear masks if need be, coming and going. One or two of the people who requested to participate did say that they could only participate remotely, so I think we can accommodate that in that setting. And this particular meeting would be geared towards one part education. I think having Chief kind of present the overview of how the department operates and the kinds of calls they respond to would be very useful for folks who don't actually know how police departments operate. And then certainly would be an opportunity for feedback and comment from anyone who is attending. I was thinking we would need to do 2 of those types of small group meetings, but I think we might only have numbers to justify 1. If we get closer to 20, then we'll probably do 2. And then we would have a larger, open to the public forum type of meeting with the same topic. And I'm considering doing it at our State of the Village meeting at the end of January, early February, marking out an hour-ish of that time. Since in previous years, we've talked about things like water and sewer projects, and we don't have to talk about that this time around, then we can discuss that. And that'll be an opportunity for folks to kind of just opine if that's what they want to do, or ask specific questions if that's something they want to do. And then that'll give us time to develop a plan of some kind, which I think the governor wants to go to public hearing, and then be adopted before April 1. So I'm mentioning all of that to kind of give an update on that piece. I'm still not sure what the county and city have planned. They had indicated last week that they would be releasing something today, early this week. And we're still waiting to see what that might look like. And we'll certainly participate if requested, but each municipality with a police department has to develop their own community-based feedback plan. So we'll not sit around and wait for everyone else to figure out how they want to do it. So I mentioned all of that by way of update, and then also to see if anyone else from the board has comments or input, suggestions, or things they would like to see done differently.
Do we give any thought? I haven't given any thought to the State of the Village just yet. That is thankfully an often well-attended meeting. And I'm wondering how we logistically pull that off. Maybe in the fire truck bays, but even that could get a little bit packed in there. I don't know if you've given that any thought. I like the idea of getting people together, especially for this style of meeting. If we can do that responsibly, I'm just a little wary. We haven't given it much thought either way about the State of the Village side of it.
Yeah, so I thought about it a little bit. One thought is it's only September, so we actually have no idea what things are going to look like at the end of January with respect to gathering sizes. If we do still have some type of restriction, although after what happened in Pennsylvania today, I think the numbers might increase on what gatherings can be. I was thinking about assuming we still have that concern come the end of January. I was thinking about seeing if we can use the school auditorium, and then marking out seats. So non-family members would have to, have a few seats between them, kind of thing. I think there's a way to accommodate probably 75 to 100 people that way. Certainly better than packing the fire hall, because even the truck bays would get crowded pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think that sounds intriguing to me, because there's also the 2-part of like there may not be a technical restriction, but I want to make sure that people that want to have a voice in that feel comfortable having a voice in that. But the auditorium feels like that could give us enough space for something like that.
And I think, although I'd have to double check, I think that the high school auditorium has broadband capability that we could use if we wanted to simultaneously either stream and or have a Q&A piece, which someone would have to be monitoring the Zoom piece, and if someone raises their hand online. But I think we can make that happen. Hate to not do a State of the Village or postpone it until it's nice out. I guess that would be one other option, is wait until late spring, early summer and do it outdoors somewhere. But that doesn't help us with this particular topic.
Yeah, I mean, I have to assume that we'll get pushback on doing pretty much anything indoors right around now. Maybe it'll be different in January, but I expect as long as we're kind of recognizing that, I don't personally think I have a concern. I feel like that space feels big enough if people are kind of in there, and then if you're not talking, you can wear a mask, and that kind of feels reasonable. But
right,
certainly open to hearing other people's ideas.
We'll see how we do if we make it through the NFL season with 1/3 capacity. The
There's
other,
no beer. There's no beer at the State of the Village.
Some teams that would 1/3 would be a big upgrade.
this is true. Any other
Hashtag.
thoughts or comments on this piece? Was that
Not
Keith?
about this,
Hashtag
but
go Bills?
I put the sewer law in the Dropbox, so you should all have it now.
Good, thank you.
Welcome.
So there's no more comments or questions on that piece. That'll do it for me for now. I do see Ann Corman has joined us. So Ann, if you would like, we can take a pause in where we are in our agenda and go back to you for your report.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you very much. I was just looking at the Cornell's COVID dashboard. It's more perplexing every time they improve it.
I agree.
So since I'm on that, the positive cases, the active positive cases right now in the county are 50, and trying to figure out how many of these are Cornell are kind of hard to tell, but in the past week, they've had 35 positives. And if you've seen their dashboard, now they're breaking it up by who's on campus, which positives are on campus, and then I'm not all sure what they're doing. Getting a little suspicious of their numbers. Let's see what else here. We did go ahead and authorize the county to pay for funding for COVID testing for people that don't fall into any of the other criteria, such as being exposed to somebody that's positive, having a health procedure, or having symptoms. So we're hoping to get reimbursement for some from FEMA and some from the state. So we'll see how that goes, but we've committed to paying for other surveillance testing for the next, I think it's maybe about another 8 more weeks. I just got done with a 5.5-hour budget meetings. And so what we're looking at right now for the county budget is we're looking at a 1.17 tax levy increase, and the bulk of our missing money, or our budget deficit, is going to be taking out of our contingent funds, because we do have, depending on how you do the math, 35 to 45 million. So we'll be taking probably 5 million out of that. Again, this is our first day of budget meetings. There'll be quite a few more. And we're looking at increasing the solid waste annual fee by $5. We increased it by $3, I think it was last year. And so overall, for a homeowner, with the tax levy increase and the solid waste increase, that would be about, on average, an $83 increase. So we're trying to keep that down as much as we possibly can. And with a lot of creativity from various departments, at this point, we're not looking at any permanent layoffs. So that's really good. We've offered early retirement and shifted some people around to different things. So right now we aren't looking at laying people off. But again, that's the beginning of budget. That could change. The Board of Elections is in the process of putting in a mail slot. And so that just another way, I don't know if it was on this nice postcard that people got about voting, but some of the highlights are that we are going to have a mail slot. So if people want to fill out an early ballot or an absentee ballot, they can, and they're worried about it getting there in the mail, you can go down and put it into the mail slot right at the Board of Elections building. And we are, of course, asking people to vote as early as they can, and to put down temporary illness if you're doing the absentee. Let's see what else. The we're looking at raising the room tax for B&Bs from 3% to 5%. So if you have any opinions about that, there's a couple of different reasons. One of the biggest thing is because we need more revenue. And so let's see, there's a traffic reroute plan from the city of Ithaca. Has anybody talked to you guys about that for Buffalo and Court Street?
Nope.
This is the DOT's new plan.
Right.
I've seen it. No one's come to our board to talk about it.
Okay, so the plan is for Buffalo Street would be one way for, and this is for the block between Meadow and Fulton Street. So just the one block would be one way going downtown. And then Court Street on that same one block would be coming back this way, one way, or they might make it two-way. They're not sure yet. But if they made it two-way, they would make it a 3-lane road and make it a little wider. So I've been talking to different people in the district, and of course, a lot of people are concerned about traffic being increased, whether you're going to or from work, or emergency vehicles being in this, or having difficulty getting up this way. And I'll send you guys an email with the information of where you make your comments to. It's to the city of Ithaca, so I have that email. And Rorden, you had asked about early retirement. I just did get something back from Anna Kellis, who was looking more into this for me. She talked to somebody who's, this is for New York State early retirement, that is currently stuck in committee, and it doesn't look right now like it's going anywhere.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked that legislation is stuck in Albany.
Right.
Or anywhere.
Hence, I think they invented the thing that, things die in committee. I think those are about the main things that I have right now.
Okay. Any questions for Ann?
Yeah, and is the county legislature or the health department, is there a level of concern over what Cornell is reporting or how they're doing their testing? You seem to have concerns based on your comments. What is the dialogue amongst the county on that?
Well, I guess what I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. What's been hard lately is that they've been changing things, for instance, when they changed their having people when they first came into quarantine on campus, they changed that. And so with giving us about an hour's notice that they had changed that. And we had been working with them with the health department for quite a while. And so, we had a lot of confidence for a couple of months, and then they just started making changes. So that's hard. So we're some of us are losing some confidence that, like if I can't make sense of these numbers, and I've been following the county's numbers and other state numbers and national numbers, I've been following them pretty much every day for months and months, and I'm having trouble making heads or tails of Cornell's numbers. That I'm just saying it's a challenge, and I think it should be easier. And so it makes me kind of wonder what they're doing. And it would be nice if they then made a change, like when we make a change on our county site, we tell people, we explain it there. Here's the change that we made of how we're displaying the data, and this is why. And so, and maybe they are, but it's not on there, and I have to follow it somewhere else. So
Well, as
But
I
I will say,
understand it,
I will say with having a niece and just visiting her at Oneonta, where they had to close down, overall, of course, Cornell is doing a stupendous job.
as I understand it, the change was based on the state's legislation that said the 100-person closing rule only applied to the students living on campus. So that's why they broke down the infection rate by on campus and then total.
The
Because now-
problem is that just today they switched it. So now they only show their confirmed on campus positive date ranges from 2 days ago till the 25th in the future. And they have just 3 people in it, which is
Right.
very confusing.
Right.
So like,
Right.
yeah.
So it says from 9/12 to 9/25, they have 3 confirmed cases. And so if they're saying, okay, well, we only had to take a 2-week and now we're starting another 2 weeks. So I don't know and understand what that is. Like Ben said.
Yeah,
But
it's
maybe that's a
it's been hard to
mistake.
follow along with. It would be nice if there was more explanation. It required, I mean, when they first made that change, it required me to read the whole like 3-page document from the state to understand why, which is fine, but it'd be nice if they could kind of just highlight some details. Again, I think in general they're doing an incredible job. Opportunities for improvement.
But is it still the case that the county in their daily numbers, they are aware of what the Cornell cases are? I mean, Ben, your comment on that was you thought it was all being added on the daily basis.
Yeah,
Well,
my
they're-
impression is the county numbers include the Cornell numbers. I don't know if Ann
Right.
knows anything else.
But I can't take those numbers because they're displaying their numbers totally different. I can't tell you that out of the 50 cases, our active cases, how many active cases there are at Cornell. I don't know. So it would be nice if they put in that because I can't extrapolate that out by their daily numbers, So I can say probably, since they're saying they had 35 from the past week, maybe it's 15 in the county. I'm not sure. So they could have something a little, and I know it's hard because they're trying to figure out their own thing and we've had lots of criticism on ours too. But since the county and Cornell are displaying them different data, it's hard to extrapolate that.
That sounds like a good question for Frank.
Well, I have talked to Frank about this. Cornell was supposed to tell their numbers. We weren't supposed to keep track of them. They were supposed to keep track of them. But yeah, I'll bring this up tomorrow in our legislative meeting.
My only comment, Ann, is that I have not looked at the DOT plan very closely, but and I am thankful every morning that I don't have to drive into Ithaca for work. But certainly, a lot of folks in Trumansburg do. The ambulance piece concerns me, particularly from the Lansing and Dryden side. If they need to get to CMC, what that traffic flow change might do. But I guess we'll find out as the planning evolves. Any other comments or questions for Ann? Okay, well, thanks, Ann. Appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me chime in here.
Sure thing. Let's see. Next item is item number 7, old business. We have one item on the agenda and one we've added. We'll do the item on the agenda first. That's the village website refresh. Ben, take it away.
Yeah, so we chatted about this last time around. I have to admit, I can't remember the details of what we kind of brought up. I know we had asked for a viewing of kind of the administrative side of the website. So there's a video of that I passed around. And we were also looking for some sort of a contract. In talking with FLX software, they said, they're happy if we want to go just month to month and pay them and kind of, we don't have to have a contract per se. They're also happy if we want to do kind of a year at a time and have that a little more formalized, I guess, as it were. So I think it's a little bit up to us which way we would like to go. There's in the Dropbox an invoice for a 12-month contract starting on the 1st of October. Should we want to go that route? It can be a little bit flexible. And then if there's any other questions that folks had about any more details we wanted to get into before kind of saying yes on this, happy to try and answer, or we can keep pushing and getting more answers. But I think I hopefully addressed everything that was brought up last month.
Any thoughts? I'm not inclined to kind of just push this path, to just table this. I mean, we've gotten quotes. We kind of have, I think we all kind of have an idea of what's involved in website maintenance to a certain extent, what the quotes would tend to be out there. So I think it's just a question of whether we feel that our website needs updating. I think we've discussed that. And if the consensus is that it's time for another refresh, as we come up on, it'll be 4 or 5 years since the last one, next spring, then I don't think $200 a month is a very large number to pay for it. I don't have a strong opinion about monthly versus annual. And I would just as soon let them start a design that they can pass along to us in some type of a some type of a beta test view that we can comment on.
Cool. Yeah, if there's any other concerns, I guess if it's just the 200 a month, we probably don't need any sort of board movement on that. I can just reach out again and say, let's move forward that way. I'm happy to be the point person for kind of point of contact, but then obviously bring in other folks as needed. Obviously, Tammy would probably, and Morgan would probably spend some time putting content there. So want to obviously get you guys involved and just kind of figure it out as we move along. So I can take that as kind of approval to keep moving forward, and I'll work with them to kind of kick that off.
Good. Sounds good.
Where do we want to take that from?
IT contractual.
Okay.
Let's see. Old business item added to the agenda is, I think Keith wanted to go over our most recent update or lack thereof on the famous footbridge.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think, I posted about it on the Virtual Village Hall Facebook page last week. And, I think there's a little bit of a sentiment for those that haven't been following the project closely, because I think it's been closed it's got to be close to 2 years now.
Spring will be 2 years. This coming spring would be 2 years.
Okay. So year and a half. And, I think I just want to get rid of this sentiment that the board or the village somehow doesn't really care about this project, or that it's, we're choosing not to move on it, and we're acting slowly, and we're just not interested in restoring it to workability. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about, or at least have a discussion about, what do we know are the next steps? What do we think might be the cost of those steps? And, what can we communicate outward that is really the situation, and just to get rid of any ambiguity that's kind of lingering about this process. I think there is maybe an underappreciation for sometimes how slowly things can move, especially when you're looking for state approvals. And if that's the case, that's the case. But just want to, try to bring as much clarity to the status of the bridge as possible. I know there's been some comments from kind of the Juniper Manor population who use that bridge to get it down to Main Street. And there's, I know there's a lot of interest in it coming back. So I just want to make sure we fully understand what needs to happen and what that cost might be so that we can, in a time of budgetary stress like we're all in right now with low sales tax revenue and everything else, we really can paint a picture as to what it's going to cost to restore this, and then be able to have a discussion about, is that a priority right now or isn't it?
So the status is clear. DEC has approved us doing whatever we need to do to shore up the south side retaining wall along Trumansburg Creek. They have, however, stated that we need the Army Corps of Engineers to approve any plans before we can proceed. Army Corps, which we had been in contact with pre-COVID and then did not get back to us from March until approximately June or July, I think it was, has stated that they need engineering drawings. I don't remember all of the terminology. Engineering drawings, site. There was something about the levels. What's that term I'm looking for? Danny? Elevation drawings. Thank you. Elevation drawings. They didn't ask for stamped plans
Project.
per se, but essentially, drawings of the scope of the project, elevation plans, etc. What that will cost will depend entirely on who does it. I have a meeting with MRB tomorrow about something unrelated. I was going to ask them if they would at least quote us the work. And so we're looking, I can't give you a number on the dollar figure. The frustrating part for me, I think, was how easily DEC approved us moving forward with whatever we wanted to do. But then it was very slow to get a response from Army Corps. And then the response they did give us was not helpful. And so it is in a bit of a holding pattern, and yeah, so I'm going to have that conversation with MRB tomorrow about whether they would give us a number for how much it would cost to get the drawings and scope of work, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so that's
Certainly, if a civil engineer offers their time, we can't solicit free business, but if a civil engineer were to offer their time, then we would probably take them up on it.
and that would be sufficient for the Army Corps.
Assuming that engineer produced the drawings that the Army Corps wants.
Right. Although then I guess there's the debate on whether or not this is legitimate community build project or not. And is that a determination that would come out of MRB's research?
I don't know. I think the determination about who does the actual work will probably, some of that may come from Army Corps, and some of it may simply be based on the scope of work that the drawings indicate need to be done.
Because certainly if it's not a realistic community build or volunteer project, then we're going to see costs skyrocket, right?
Right. And whether it's a realistic community build or not will depend on who you ask.
Right.
More often than not.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe we talk about that at the appropriate time, but that seems like that's going to have to be our decision, right?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's always our decision,
right,
to a certain extent.
Okay. All right. I think unless anyone else has any questions, I think that makes it pretty clear where we're at. I know one quote for the work we got in the past was about $125,000, but that was to actually do the work, right? Not just the drawings.
Right, and that was based on some assumptions that the contractor was making about what that scope of work might entail, which may or may not be necessary depending on, again, you know, DEC did say you can do whatever you want. If Army Corps had said we don't care, then I imagine we probably would have given some attempt to some type of a community repair build that may or may not have been successful. Once Army Corps said we need A through G, then that pretty much put a stop on any attempt to do anything until we can get that piece taken care of.
Okay. So just to be clear, I mean, it's the time elapsed is mostly the waiting to hear from the state. First it was the DEC, and then it was, you know, 3-4 months to hear from the Army Corps.
DEC, I will say DEC responded very quickly. I was very impressed with DEC. I've been highly unimpressed with the Army Corps.
Okay.
So the time elapsed, certainly, you know, initially, if we go back to the spring of 2019, you know, there's an elapsed time where we as a village and DPW tries to figure out whether it's, you know, what the scope of the work is. By the time we're into the fall, we're not doing any construction anyway in the fall, and we're asking DEC. They get back to us in January, February. And then something happened in March that slowed everything down. So that put the kibosh on a lot of things.
Okay.
I will say that the notion that the village doesn't care, I think is a little bit of a, I don't know that it even needs to be addressed. I will say, however, when it comes to prioritizing projects, stormwater drainage, you know, that type of piece, sidewalks, and large infrastructure, facilities, those kinds of things have to take some precedence, but they're all moving at the same time. They're just not all moving very quickly.
So that being said, Gordon, since you brought it up, where is stormwater at?
That's the meeting tomorrow. So I'm meeting with Matt to go over, he came up with a punch list of items based on where we want to look at spending the DASNY money. So we're going to meet tomorrow to discuss and then go from there.
Okay, thank you.
And simultaneously, we also got response from Guy today about requirements for seeker in order to spend DASNY money. So we're going back to DASNY because they require some type of a seeker review, even though the scope of the work, even though seeker does not require us to do a seeker review because everything is in right of way. DASNY requires seeker, so we're going back to them to get some clarification about whether it's you know, what they want us to produce, either a type 2 declaration or an SEAF for an unlisted action, something like that.
And just to be clear, I just wanted to talk this out in the meeting so that if there are more questions, there's a record of the discussion and everyone can get up to speed.
You can go to the tape.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Item number 8 is new business. We've scratched the EMS fire budget discussion, unless Ben has anything else he wants to add to that piece. And we have listed to discuss the concept of a diversity committee. I'm going to let you talk about this, Keith, since you had sent the original email that led to this ending up on the agenda, about what your thoughts are, what you have in mind, and how you might see it proceeding if the board chooses to do it.
Yeah, well, it started with a discussion with some neighbors as to, you know, how to actually take some action on, you know, a lot of the discussions happening in the community right now, and could be something that, you know, is action and leads to, you know, the local changes that the government doing, our local government doing what it can, though we know in a lot of ways it's limited. Is it a productive idea? That's what I think this board should talk about. And I think it's only productive if the right volunteers agree to do it and that there's clear goals and we can offer some sort of assurances that the results of whatever comes out of the committee can be applied and instituted. So really, it's not, honestly, I don't know if it's something I'm fully ready to endorse, but I at least wanted to get the discussion going with the board. I'm definitely conscious of too many committees or committees that are formed that aren't productive or don't have guidance or don't really have a mission. And also, especially if that committee is linked to a local government that may or may not have the ability to enact everything someone would want us to enact or change. So I think there's a lot of discussions to have there, but it was brought to me, and in concept, I think it's a good idea to talk about these things and try to have a community dialogue, and maybe it's just breakout discussions as a community. Maybe it's not a full committee, but anything that can get the village government doing what it can, and maybe that's another discussion. What can we do? I think would be appropriate. But again, just would want the board to talk about it and see if it's something that could be productive in your view, or if you think it's just something that's just going to lead to frustration. I'm conscious of that too. I've been on enough committees where you get asked to do something, then you come up with things, and then the people that ask you to form the committee say thanks, no thanks, kind of thing. So I want to be conscious of all that and wouldn't want to put something together unless it's going to have the chance to produce something or is set up for success to begin with. So that's all I wanted to bring forward and hear what your thoughts are.
Any comments?
I'll jump in. I mean, my initial thought is that there's probably a lot of overlap here between the idea of this committee. Well, I think first, just to say that I do think it could be productive. Just like you said, I think depending on community interest and investment in it, it could be very productive or it could not be, depending entirely on the makeup of that committee. But it may be that there's a lot of overlap between this and the meetings with police. So it might be worth waiting and sort of gauging the interest there and see if that overlap exists and if people are, engaged and want to do something lasting beyond just those few meetings with the police, or just to sort of get a sense of the interest there would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that's an idea. And to that point, some of this could also, not to add anything to Ben's plate, but some of this could also come up in some of the, comp plan discussions, but you're probably already far enough down that road where you might not want to be throwing in any amendments at this point. But yes, I mean, that is one thought, that existing committees might be able to talk about some of this stuff in their own way.
I mean, I can say to the CPZR side of things, that's definitely my hope, is to get feedback from that first draft that we'll hopefully have out in the next, couple of months, end of the year, certainly. To have people weigh in if we're, I mean, diversity and inclusion is explicitly called out in the vision statement. And to that end, if people have ideas or see places that we're missing and haven't called out strongly enough in the comp plan, in the actions we're recommending, whatever it might be, I would absolutely love to hear more feedback from the community around that. So that isn't a standalone committee with kind of a real focus per se, but is definitely a place to continue that input. And I think I am inclined to agree with Ben's approach too, is a way to kind of start the conversation, to start with the police conversation and see who raises a hand, who gets really involved there. and see if there's appetite to kind of continue that going forward. I feel like when I give it a thought myself, and this is probably my own lack of imagination, is that I, outside of the police conversation, have a hard time thinking of kind of what's the next big piece to kind of take an eye towards. But yeah, that doesn't mean that shouldn't stop a committee. I think that's part of the point of the committee, right? Is to kind of come up with those ideas and give that variety of input and perspective into the process. So I like the idea. I'm supportive of it in concept. I think it might be, I like the idea too of the kind of incremental approach of starting with police, which we know is in front of us, and seeing if we can kind of snowball off of that.
So my reaction to the whole thing is, anytime I hear committee, I'm like, my hackles go up. I don't want to be part of any committee. I don't want to, I'm not committing myself to anything. I don't. So, however, I do think it's important to have a venue to have an open discussion with the community. And if that venue starts with the discussion around police, then that's where it starts. I don't feel like it has to be a municipal. It's nice that it's a municipal driven discussion to start with. However, I think it should be driven by the community desire to be inclusive and to understand the issues. And I'm just tired.
No, I like your point, Deb. It got me thinking just now of an article I'd come across a couple months ago. This idea of like it takes different people and for different perspectives and different kind of approaches to really tackle a problem as large as this. And part of that is municipal attention, but part of it has to like almost explicitly be not municipal, like, you know, by bringing that municipal structure in, you can really kind of destroy a vibrant conversation in some ways. Yeah, kind of to your point, like death by committee, right? Like that's actually the opposite of what wants to happen. So I wonder if there's another way of approaching it too, where there are groups of folks trying to really make some changes and movements in the community. And instead of having it be a municipal committee, it could be more of working with that group, you know, more formally as a board, invite someone to have a working session with this board or a subset of this board or something to that effect, more of a collaboration in that regard.
And I think that I think that people don't know how to start. And therefore the municipality introducing it with the police is a good way to find people that really want to incorporate it into their lives and make some decisions and have a point of view. And really, you don't have people in your life normally that you can just, okay, I want to have this conversation, unless you're deliberately going out to have that conversation. So it's a great starting point, and I think that something can actually spin off of that.
That's all great. I think that's all good feedback. I would also say, you know, I think at least the way I would see it is the idea is bigger than just a discussion around. I mean, it's a good place to start. I think, you know, the topic of police reform certainly is of high interest right now. But what has me thinking about this from, you know, why it could benefit from a municipal attachment is the idea of what are the other things that make a municipality inviting to different groups of people, you know, and is that something that a village government or a town government can engineer? I don't know. we can't make people start certain types of businesses, right? We can't, there's not enough we can do there, but if, if police reform is where the discussion needs to start, then we can jump off from there. But
And I think that's one of the things that we start that meeting with. Okay, we're starting a discussion on police reform, but what we really want to do is start a discussion on diversity and inclusivity in Trumansburg, which is beyond just the municipal interactions. How many, I've been here a long time. And I was just thinking, how many people even know that Black people live here? You would be amazed at how many people don't know any Black people live here. And yet every Black person is violent and is against the police and everything else. And they've lived among us for, now we've been here 35, 36 years, and they don't know it. So it's even, I've been doing this for 10 years, and Steve has been to 3 State of the Village meetings. And he even said he would be part of this. So there's some change going on somewhere.
Yeah, I think I see a couple of different issues here. One is, I think we all have a similar, at least Deb and I do, but I think we probably all have a similar reaction when we hear the word committee. All you have to do is sit through a few TCOG meetings over the last few years. And, that's one example of a committee that can do good work, but can go years without much happening. So I think the committees that are effective are ones that have a clear purpose and mandate, either developed from within or given to them. So CPZR is a great example. Here's what we need to do. Here's the time frame you have to do it. And if we can only go over by a little bit, we consider it a success. So now you have marching orders. So I think whether it's municipal or not is one issue. But regardless of whether it's municipal or community driven, having a clear mandate of what are we actually hoping to accomplish will be something that the committee will need to have as a focus. I can see we talk about the police reform meetings. I can see a possibility that after a couple of meetings with the community around how the village of Trumansburg Police Department operates, that structurally we might find that there's little change that the village needs to do. Maybe we find out that there's a lot of change we need, but I think it's at least a possibility that if we don't let that conversation break down into all of the problems with policing in America, and we focus on the narrow mandate from the governor and say, what do we need to do with the village of Trumansburg Police Department? It'll be a great conversation and everyone will get to speak their piece, and hopefully some folks will be educated on how the department operates. But if nothing actually comes out of it in terms of action items for the department, it won't be that those meetings were not successful, but I don't know what that leads to in terms of future work for the committee, unless that committee has some type of a clear purpose in mind. And so whether the village creates the committee or the committee forms organically, I think that that's going to be very important to crystallize, what are we seeking to do? Are we seeking to change the hearts and minds of human beings so that they are now 100% inclusive of everyone they ever meet? It's a very noble goal. And we have human history to show us that that'll be an uphill climb. But if there's something more actionable that we can take from it, then I think that would be worthwhile.
yeah, I think it might just start with trying to determine, is there something actionable? Is there something that we can do? I don't think it's necessarily about making sure everyone likes each other. It's just kind of what are these, I mean, most of the people on this screen right now don't even like each other. No, I'm just kidding. We all like each other. You know, it's,
Kidding.
you know, for me personally, just like, you know, are there things we're overlooking because we don't talk about it? You know, are there opportunities that we could support if we took the time to hear the perspectives of, like, Trustee Watkins explained, you know, that there are people here that have been here that probably have opinions that we haven't heard. And maybe there's ideas there, maybe there aren't. But I'd be interested. I'd be interested to know. But again, I totally agree. I totally agree that there has to be a clear goal and clear objectives. And so I think the idea that maybe we wait and see if that comes out of the discussions on police reform, that makes sense. You know, those discussions could be very focused on just what the governor is requesting of us and not go far beyond that. And if that tends to be the case, you know, I guess where I also want to be mindful of is not to assume that police is the only problem, right? I think it's very easy to sum it up there and just say, hey, if we gotta clamp down on the police, and then we can all go back to celebrating the end of racism like we did when Barack Obama got elected. So, you know, I think there's just some, you know, just looking into it, you know, a little more deeply as it, you know, whether it's housing, business ownership, you know, anything, you know, things that I walk around every day and probably don't think about, but other people do. So, but again, I know that's broad. That's the problem. That's broad. Found a committee and then on that kind of idea. So again, happy to see start with the police community discussions. I think that, I mean, we're already organizing that, so that makes a lot of sense, and we can evaluate after those discussions begin.
Okay, good. If there's nothing more on that, are there any other items of new business?
Stop rolling those eyes, Tammy.
Then let's move on to pay some bills. Approval of abstracts, item number 9. Abstract number 4 of the year so far. We have a general fund abstract totaling $246,065.90.
I move that we approve that abstract.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments?
I did have one, sorry, but now I've lost.
Looks like, is that a DPW truck in there?
No, that's the fire truck.
The 3/4 ton Chevy?
Yes.
Actually, that's a 1 ton.
Oh, I thought it said 3/4.
No, the 2500 is 3/4.
Well, I can't find it, so I guess that's all right.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, then all in favor of approving the general fund abstract, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We have an EMS billing abstract in the amount of $11,263.87.
I move that we pay $11,263.87 of the EMS billing budget.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comments? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Deb's last water fund abstract
I'm looking at this. I said, what did I
in the
do?
amount of $1,237,897.12. This includes the bond refunding.
There we go. 1,120,000.
1.12.
And then 55,000 on top of that. And then 26,000 on top of that. Okay, I move.
Out with a bang.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Don't anybody sue me. I move that we pay from the water fund $1,237,897.12.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions, or discussion?
Now that's completely closed. Is that correct?
The refunding?
Yeah.
I believe it is actually officially closed at the 1st of October.
Okay.
So we're approving it ahead of time.
Okay.
Comments, questions? If not, then all in favor of paying the water fund abstract, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I look
Sewer fund.
forward to when
What's
we.
that?
I look forward to when we erect the Watkins statue down at the water sewer plant.
Yes, knee deep in shit.
There
That's,
you go.
that's what I can be remembered for.
Speaking of which, the sewer fund abstract is $25,716.97.
I move that we pay $25,716.97 from the sewer fund.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 And any opposed? Last but not least is our trust and agency abstract in the amount of $31,016.85.
I move that we pay this abstract.
Second.
Any questions? If not, then all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We have our second public comment period, privilege of the floor. I do not see any members of the public present. And so I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a couple of personnel issues.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mhm.
Okay, we are in executive session. Let me stop the recording in the live stream.